Yeah, throwing means twisting the threads. So before this, we are not getting a twisted silk yarn. What we are getting? The raw silk filament. So the raw silk filament, as it comes from the filature means the reeling industry. As it comes from the filature, is too fine to withstand the stresses of weaving. What type of stresses are there in weaving? What type of stresses? Have you studied something introduction about weaving? You have done in FM1. Weaving के बारे में पढ़ा है ना?
Yes, sir.
Weaving means interlacement of warp and weft. The process of interlacement of warp and weft. So for the interlacement, the warp threads are divided into two layers, that is known as shading, to form the shade. Yes. So during the shading process, we are dividing the warp threads. So some stretch is applied on the warp threads. Some amount of stretch is applied on the warp threads, and due to that, stresses are there on the yarn, warp yarn. And a little, however, less stresses on weft, but little bit stresses or tension is also exerted on weft threads also. So if we are using the raw silk filament, and because these raw silk filament are too fine and soft, that they will not be able to bear the stresses of weaving. And if they are not able to withstand or bear the stresses or forces during weaving, they will easily break, and there will be much yarn breakages during weaving. So it will reduce the production of weaving, production of loom. So it must go through a series of operations called throwing, which will make them suitable for weaving. So what is throwing? Throwing is making the raw silk filament, which is very fine and weak, to impart throwing with the throwing process, we are imparting twist. So by twisting the threads, we are imparting strength to the yarn, and that yarn will be able to withstand the forces of weaving or the stresses of weaving. For this reason, to use the silk filament in the fabric, we require this throwing process. Got it? Now, stages of throwing. We are having different stages, like in reeling, we have taken different stages. Similarly, some stages are there during throwing process. First one is always we are doing shorting. The raw silk skeins are shorted or separated for quality. Similarly, as we are separating the cocoons for quality, similarly here again the raw silk skeins are separated or shorted according to their size, color, length, denier, etc. After shorting, soaking. Skeins are soaked in warm water with soap. The softening of the sarracen gum aids the easy handling of the filament, because we are not able to remove all the sarracen material during the previous process. So again we are soaking them into warm water with soap, so that this sarracen gum will get softened, and if it gets softened, then easy handling of the filament is possible. Easy winding and unwinding of the filament is possible. So after shorting, we are going through soaking. Then drying, because we have soaked them into water, so we have to dry it. So the skeins are dried by a centrifugal extractor and circulating hot air. So for that purpose, we use centrifugal extractors in which centrifugal forces are acting, and we are circulating hot air into that extractor. So drying will take place. After drying, now we are going for winding. The skeins are now rewound from reels to bobbins. हमने वहाँ किस पर किया था? रील्स होती हैं, जो हमने वो लिया था, रीलिंग ड्रम लिया था, जिसके ऊपर फिलामेंट को वाइंड किया है, वहां से हम इसको बॉबिन्स के ऊपर वाइंड करते हैं. बिग नॉट्स एंड इरेगुलरिटीज आर रिमूव्ड एट द सेम टाइम. अगर कोई बिग नॉट्स या कुछ इरेगुलरिटीज ऑलरेडी हैं यार्न के अंदर, तो वो भी हम यहाँ पर रिमूव करते हैं. Just like we are having the purpose of winding and warp winding and weft winding in weaving of these different type of fabrics. Similarly, here we have the winding process so that we can remove big knots or irregularities during this process. After winding, we are going for doubling. And this is also known as low twisting because here a less amount of twist is imparted. Main purpose is doubling, means doubling together number of silk filaments, single silk filaments according to our requirement. So this is also known as low twisting. At this stage, the threads from 2 or more bobbins are twisted together. So here purpose is doubling, not the twisting. Main purpose is doubling. So 2 or more threads from 2 or more bobbins are doubled here to form a single strand. दो या दो से ज्यादा को हम एक साथ लेकर के एक सिंगल स्ट्रैंड, एक सिंगल कंटिन्यूस मटेरियल बनाते हैं. एंड दिस इज अ डाउनवर्ड प्रोसेस विद लिटिल अमाउंट ऑफ ट्विस्ट. और ये जो प्रोसेस है इसमें जो मूवमेंट है मटेरियल का, इट इज डाउनवर्ड साइड, एंड हियर वी इम्पार्ट अ वेरी लिटिल अमाउंट ऑफ ट्विस्ट just to hold the threads together, and this is known as tram. After this doubling, the filament which we are getting after doubling, it can be termed as tram, which is used particularly for weft in the fabric. After this doubling, now we are going for main twisting process, that is known as up twisting, which is also known as high twisting, because in case of doubling we are imparting very less amount of twist. The purpose of doubling is double the required number of threads only, but slight amount of twist is imparted in that case so that it can hold the threads during up twisting. And also known as high twisting, the double threads is now wound upward onto a new bobbin and acquires more twist. Here we are imparting, through some mechanism, we are imparting the required amount of twist or the twist per inch. So after that we are getting the yarn, and that silk yarn is known as thrown silk yarn. And this process is known as throwing of silk, means imparting of twist, required twist in the final silk filament or silk yarn, which can be used for next processes like weaving. And then it is conditioned by conditioning. High twisted threads is then placed in an oven which sets the twist so it will not untwist during next process. So this is heat setting process in which we are conditioning the threads so that the twist will not be removed during coming processes, during next processes. So this is all about throwing. Throwing is twisting the threads. It consists of, purpose of it is to make the yarn to withstand the stresses of weaving. And how it is done? With the help of these processes: shorting, soaking, drying, winding, doubling, up twisting, and conditioning. After conditioning, we are getting a highly twisted silk thread or silk yarn, which can be used for next processes like weaving. So that is an important process after reeling, which is known as throwing. The next process which is done after throwing is known as degumming, because here we are having a gummy material which is known as sericin, which is found with the fibroin filament. Already we have taken 2 fibroin filament covered by sericin, that is known as BAVE. So the silk filament, single silk filament which we are getting is having this gummy substance known as sericin. So the natural gum sericin is normally left on the silk during reeling, throwing and weaving. इन सब के बाद भी हर स्टेज पे हम सेरिसिन को सॉफ्ट कर रहे हैं, रिमूव कर रहे हैं, बट इस सब के बावजूद कुछ सेरिसिन का अमाउंट सिल्क यार्न के साथ होता है. The natural gum sericin is normally left on the silk during reeling, throwing, and weaving. It acts as a size which protects the fibers from mechanical damage. So up to this stage, it is assisting or it is preventing the fibers from mechanical damages. The sericin is removed from the finished yarns or fabrics usually by boiling with soap and water. But after that, we have to remove the sericin. And how we remove it? It is removed from the finished yarn or fabrics usually by boiling with soap and water. The same process which we are doing earlier in earlier stages, boiling with soap and water. After degumming, the silk acquires its beautiful luster. Degumming के बाद silk एक अच्छी luster acquire करता है and becomes soft, और इसकी softness भी बढ़ती है because gummy material हमने remove कर दिया, जो कि hard material है उसको हमने remove कर दिया, so softness will get increased. But simultaneously, approximately 22 to 25% weight of the material may be lost during it. Degumming process के टाइम पर क्या होगा, लगभग 22 से 25% जो मटेरियल है साइरिसिन है वो रिमूव होगा, तो उसकी वजह से उसका वेट रिड्यूस होगा. ओवरऑल जो सिल्क मटेरियल है उसका वेट रिड्यूस होगा by 22 to 25%, and therefore the cost increases. और जैसे ही उसका वेट कम होगा तो मटेरियल की कॉस्ट इंक्रीज हो जाएगी. So degummed silk है that will be more costly as compared to the normal the silk which is not degummed. To reduce it, weighing is done. So sometimes to reduce the cost and to overcome this weight loss during degumming, we are going through a process which is known as weighing. So next process after degumming, which may be done or which may not be done, it is optional, because whenever we are producing very high quality of silk materials, silk textile materials, at that time we are selling them at a very high cost, because the buyers or customers are ready to give the cost for good quality, good luster and softness of the silk, for which it is not well known. So at that time we are not going for weighing process, but sometimes some buyers require silk fabrics at lower cost. So to reduce the cost, sometimes we are going through weighing process. Weighing means because of these drop in weight during degumming, various methods have been used to make up the loss. इस loss को make up करने के लिए कई सारे methods use किए गए हैं. Silk readily absorbs certain salts from their solution in water. साल्ट्स की जो सॉल्यूशन है वाटर के साथ, उसमें से वो सॉल्ट को बहुत रेडिली, बहुत इजीली एब्जॉर्ब कर लेता है सिल्क. एल्यूमिनियम, फेरस and tin salts are used for weighing silk materials. So degummed silk is steeped in a solution of tin chloride or ferrous chloride or aluminum chloride. So what will happen? It will absorb this aluminum or ferrous or tin, these salts, it will absorb, and the silk filaments will get or will gain some weight by this process. So to reduce the cost, we are going for weighing process. But for good qualities, when the buyer is ready to pay higher cost, there is no need of weighing process. So after degumming, sometimes we go for weighing process. After washing, the silk is steeped in a solution of phosphate. After weighing, हम उसको wash करेंगे, and then silk is steeped in a solution of phosphate. This double steeping process is repeated several times. जो हम इसको दोबारा उसमें steep कर रहे हैं, इस process को भी हम कई बार repeat करते हैं. After which it is treated with sodium silicate solution to fix tin salts properly. अगर हमने weighing किया है तो उसके बाद में हम उसको वापस ट्रीट करेंगे सोडियम सिलिकेट सॉल्यूशन से, सो दैट जो सॉल्ट्स इसने एब्जॉर्ब किए हैं दैट विल गेट फिक्स्ड विद द सिल्क टेक्सटाइल मटेरियल. वेटेड सिल्क फैब्रिक्स आर नॉट एज स्ट्रॉन्ग एज दोज मेड फ्रॉम प्योर सिल्क. वेइंग के बाद कॉस्ट तो रिड्यूस हो रहा है, लेकिन साइमल्टेनियसली उसकी स्ट्रेंथ भी रिड्यूस हो रही है. हेवीली वेटेड fabrics are more sensitive to the effects of light, air and perspiration and deteriorate under certain circumstances. और इनके deterioration के chances भी ज़्यादा बढ़ जाते हैं. So for good qualities of silk textile materials, we are not using weighing process. Now the varieties of thrown silk yarn means by twisting the silk, single filaments of silk in different ways, we can produce different types or different varieties of thrown silk yarn. So here, all the thrown silk yarn are varying or differing only in two respects. Those are, one is the number of reeled threads twisted together. जो डिफरेंट वेराइटीज हैं थ्रोन सिल्क यार्न की, उनमें केवल दो ही डिफरेंस होंगे. उन्हीं डिफरेंस की वजह से हम उनको अलग अलग नाम दे रहे हैं थ्रोन सिल्क यार्न को. उन वेराइटीज के बारे में अभी पढ़ेंगे. उन वेराइटीज में क्या डिफरेंस होगा? एक तो नंबर ऑफ रील्ड थ्रेड्स. जो रॉ सिल्क यार्न, रॉ सिल्क फिलामेंट जो हम ले रहे हैं, जो रीलिंग के बाद मिल रहा है, उसमें हमने कितना नंबर लिया है, कितने नंबर ऑफ रील्ड थ्रेड्स को, रील्ड फिलामेंट्स को हमने ट्विस्ट किया है, हमने डबल किया है ड्यूरिंग द प्रोसेस ऑफ थ्रोविंग. जब हम डबलिंग कर रहे हैं तो हमने कितने नंबर ऑफ रील्ड थ्रेड्स वहां पर ट्विस्ट लिए हैं साथ में डबलिंग करने के लिए. एंड व्हाट अमाउंट ऑफ ट्विस्ट पर यूनिट लेंथ मींस टीपीआई और टीपीएम we are imparting into the final yarn. So amount of twist and number of reeled threads twisted together. इन दोनों में हम डिफरेंस करके कई तरह की वेराइटीज थ्रोन सिल्क यार्न की प्रोड्यूस कर सकते हैं, जिनको कुछ स्पेसिफिक नाम दिए गए हैं. दैट इज explained into the coming slides. The first one is singles. 3 to 10 strands of silk filaments, reeled silk filaments, are twisted together in one direction to form a yarn called single. अगर 3 से 10 सिल्क फिलामेंट्स, जो रॉ सिल्क फिलामेंट्स हैं, उनको हम एक ही डायरेक्शन में साथ डबल करके जो स्ट्रेन मटेरियल, जो स्ट्रेन बन रहा है, उसको हम बोलते हैं सिंगल्स. लो ट्विस्ट सिंगल्स हैविंग 2 or 3 ट्विस्ट पर इंच यूज्ड फॉर वेफ्ट. और ऐसे लो ट्विस्ट सिंगल्स जो हैं, जिनमें 2 से 3 ट्विस्ट पर इंच इम्पार्ट किया हुआ है, वो वेफ्ट पर्पस से यूज होगा. उसको हम वार्प में यूज नहीं कर सकते, बिकॉज दे विल नॉट बी एबल टू विथस्टैंड द फोर्सेस ड्यूरिंग शेडिंग, बिकॉज वार्प इज गोइंग थ्रू शेडिंग प्रोसेस. So it is used only for weft. Singles can be used only for weft. Tram. This is formed by twisting 2 or 3 singles with 2 or 3 TPI, known as low twisted tram. तो यहाँ आप देखें थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस हुआ है नंबर ऑफ थ्रेड्स के अंदर, और नाम चेंज हो गया. सिंगल्स को हम ट्रैम बोल रहे हैं. हाई ट्विस्टेड ट्रैम विल हैव 15 to 50 TPI. हम हाईली ट्विस्टेड ट्रैम भी बना सकते हैं, बट उनका ट्विस्ट हम बढ़ाएंगे. दैट विल बी 50 to 50 ट्विस्ट पर इंच. ट्रैम इज मॉडरेटली स्ट्रॉन्ग एंड सॉफ्ट एंड यूज फॉर वेफ्ट. ये भी बहुत ज्यादा स्ट्रेंथ नहीं होगा, मॉडरेटली स्ट्रेंथ होती है, इस वजह से हम इसको भी हम वेफ्ट में ही यूज करते हैं. सिंगल्स एंड ट्रैम्स आर यूज्ड ओनली फॉर वेफ्ट पर्पस. Another name of silk, thrown silk yarn is organzine. It is composed of 2 or more singles of 15 TPI. Now here you have to remember, because there is nothing more to understand, you have to remember, you have to cram it, just the number of singles and the TPI. Accordingly, we are naming them. It is composed of 2 or more singles of 15 TPI, which are twisted in opposite direction with 12 to 30 TPI. It is composed of 2 or more singles of 15 TPI. Singles जो ले रहे हैं उनका TPI 15 है, और वो 2 या 2 से ज्यादा होंगे, और जिस तरफ सिंगल्स में ट्विस्ट है उसके अपोजिट डायरेक्शन में 12 to 30 TPI हम फाइनल यार्न को ट्विस्ट दे रहे हैं, which cause them to interlock more tightly, resulting in a stronger yarn. That's why the organzine are more stronger as compared to this tram and singles, because we are imparting twist of 12 to 30 in opposite direction, which causes them to interlock. One time we have suppose S-wise direction, then in the next time when we are after doubling, we are giving anti-clockwise, means Z twist. Crepe is another name of thrown silk yarn. It is different from the crepe fabric used in popular in the market. It is the crepe used for silk thrown yarn. It is composed of 2 pairs of twisted singles. One pair is twisted 60 to 90 TPI in one direction. The other is twisted the same number of TPI in opposite direction, and they are then twisted around each other with 3 to 5 TPI. And these are used for crepe fabrics, chiffon, and knitted hosiery fabrics. Then you can just go through this because we have lack of time and I have to cover the topic. So you just go through, because only which I have all the 4 types of yarn which I have explained, in that you can get the main thing. What is the difference in this is the how the twisting process is done, and how many numbers, what amount of twisting is done, how it is done, and what is the number of threads we are twisting together. So like Grankline, Confenzine, sewing silk, Georgette yarns, they are differing in number of silk filaments twisted together and the amount of twist given to them or imparted into them, and how we are imparting the twist. Means first we are imparting the twist in one direction, then in other directions. All these things are giving us different type of thrown silk yarns. Now this is important, so I will explain it. Spun silk, which is also very popular in the market, short length, and this is cheaper as compared to silk filament yarn. Spun silk, short lengths of inferior silk filaments obtained from waste material are not used in producing reeled silk. जो short lengths हैं और जो inferior quality के जो silk filament हैं, उनको हम as a reeled silk की तरह use नहीं करते हैं. From that obtained from, जो कि हमें waste material से मिलता है, उसको use करके जो हम yarn बना रहे हैं, that yarn is known as spun silk yarn. These waste can be cleaned, carded, and spun into yarn, just same as another spinning process like cotton and polyester viscose spinning processes. Similarly, here these wastes can be cleaned, carded, and spun into yarn, known as spun silk or waste silk. क्योंकि हम waste से बना रहे हैं, इसलिए हम इसको waste silk भी बोलते हैं. और we are using a normal spinning, ring spinning process, so it is also known as spun silk. And this is produced from fibers. Before it can be processed, the saricen must be removed by boiling of the waste silk in soapy water. It is then washed and dried. There are several sources of staple silk. हमें जो staple silk या spun silk जो हम बना रहे हैं, उसके लिए staple fibers use कर रहे हैं, जो staple silk use कर रहे हैं, उनके क्या-क्या sources हो सकते हैं. First one is, the most common is pierced cocoons, the result of breeding moths that have emerged from their cocoons. मैंने आपको life cycle जब बताया था sericulture के वाले topic में, at that time I have explained life cycle of silkworm, and the life cycle of silkworm is terminated at the pupa or chrysalis stage to get a continuous filament yarn. But if we are going for breeding moths, then life cycle is not terminated, because we require breeding moths to lay eggs to get more silkworm and to get more silk filament. So if it is kept for breeding moths and it is not killed during pupa stage, then this moth comes out from this cocoon by secreting one liquid in which this cocoon material is dissolved and one hole is formed. And due to this, the continuous silk filament gets broken into thousands of pieces, and that is known as pierced cocoon. जिस cocoon के अंदर hole हो गया है, जिसको pierce करके breeding moth बाहर आई है, उसको हम pierced cocoon बोलते हैं, from which this moth have emerged from the cocoons. Those cocoons are the main source of staple silk, क्योंकि fiber जो filament है thousands of pieces में break हो गया है, so now automatically it is converted into short fibers. So these fibers can be used for producing of spun silk with the help of spinning process. So this is one of the major resource or major source of staple silk. Second one is double cocoons. The result of two cocoons have been spun by two silkworms too close together and sometimes called Duponi silk. कई बार क्या होता है कि जो सिल्क वॉर्म्स हैं वो इतने पास में हैं, जब वो कुकुन फॉर्म कर रहे हैं तो वो दोनों की कुकुन एक दूसरे के साथ में स्टिक हो जाएगी, चिपक जाएगी, उसको हम बोलते हैं डबल कुकुन्स. और जो डबल कुकुन्स में जब हम उसको सेपरेट करते हैं तो उस समय पे भी कुछ जो सिल्क फिलामेंट हैं वो ब्रेक हो जाते हैं और ब्रेक होकर के वो स्टेपल लेंथ में कन्वर्ट होते हैं. सो दैट इज ऑल्सो सोर्स ऑफ स्टेपल सिल्क. थर्ड वन इज फ्लोज. Flows, already we have taken this word. ब्रश्ड फ्रॉम कुकुन्स बिफोर रीलिंग। रीलिंग के पहले जब हम ब्रशिंग करते हैं टिप फाइंड आउट करने के लिए, तो वहां से जो मटेरियल रिमूव हो रहा है, छोटे छोटे फाइबर्स रिमूव हो रहे हैं, उसको हम फ्लोस बोलते हैं, एंड दैट इज ऑल्सो यूज्ड फॉर स्पन सिल्क। फ्रीजन, फ्लोस के अलावा एक और मटेरियल जिसको हम फ्रीजन बोलते हैं। फ्रीजन मीन्स द कोर्स एंड अनइवन सिल्क फाइबर्स एट द बिगिनिंग एंड एट द एंड ऑफ ईच कुकुन। जब हम कुकुन से फ्लोज निकाल के उसका एंड या टिप फाइंड आउट कर लेते हैं, उसके बाद भी जो स्टार्टिंग जो उसका एंड है या एंड में जो उसका एंड है वो कोर्स या थोड़ा अनइवन होता है, जो कि अच्छी क्वालिटी का नहीं होगा, तो हम उसको क्या करेंगे, उसको रिमूव कर देंगे और उसको कलेक्ट करके, उसको हम फ्रीजन बोलते हैं, और उसको कलेक्ट करके अगेन स्पन सिल्क यार्न बनाने में हम उसको यूज करते हैं। दैट इज नोन एज फ्रीजन। द लास्ट वन इज स्क्रेप, द मशीन वेस्ट लेफ्ट फ्रॉम रीलिंग एंड थ्रोविंग। रीलिंग और थ्रोविंग के प्रोसेस के टाइम पर मशीन से जो वेस्ट निकल रहा है उसमें भी कुछ सिल्क के फाइबर्स होते हैं, उन फाइबर्स को हम स्क्रैप बोलते हैं, एंड दोस आर ऑल्सो नॉट थ्रोन, उनको हम फेंकते नहीं है, उसको भी हम स्पन सिल्क बनाने में यूज करते हैं। एंड दिस particular type of yarn is known as spun silk yarn. The last is silk noil. The waste derived from the processing of spun silk yarn is called silk noil and may be processed into spun yarns and woven into rough and coarse fabric. Spun silk बनाते वक्त भी जो वेस्ट निकल रहा है उसको भी हम यूज करते हैं, बहुत छोटे छोटे फाइबर्स होते हैं, उसको हम नॉइल बोलते हैं, और उससे जो यार्न बनता है दैट इज नोन एज सिल्क नॉइल। सो वेस्ट की वेस्ट से हम बना रहे हैं, उसको हम नॉइल बोल रहे हैं, द yarn is known as silk noil. So now we have very less time, but we have covered our targeted topic today up to silk noil. So today we have